that has legacy.
Good morning and welcome back to another episode of Dubai Works Business Podcast. Today we're talking all things cloud kitchen with Kitch. We're joined by the CEO, Walid Haj, an award-winning entrepreneur with more than 2 decades of hands-on expertise in the F&B related businesses. Walid co-founded Kitch in 2020, so last year, further revolutionizing the kitchen in the cloud concept. So Kitch, for you, those of you who don't know yet, is a hybrid delivery-focused cloud kitchen and premium storefront operator. They take digitization and fast execution of F&B concepts to a new level. Their tech-integrated delivery-only kitchens offers operators state-of-the-art avenues to test new markets or scale their food delivery and customer reach with minimal investment. So really interesting concept that we'll dip into. And we'll talk about on the show today the story of Kitch, how it came about, the whole kind of industry around kitchen in the clouds in the industry, and then what does the future look like post-COVID. Welcome, Walid. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So how are you getting on? How have you coped with the pandemic?
Well, we actually founded the company in the middle of the pandemic. So the idea of Kitch came about in January this year.
Last year, 2020.
2020, yeah, sorry, 2020. And so basically, we wanted to start, look at the trends and see what's going on. And during the pandemic, during the lockdown, this idea actually became more and more attractive. So just to tell you what the idea is and what we are trying to do, Kitch is basically a cloud kitchen operator, predominantly a cloud kitchen operator. But the way that we look at the industry is that we are looking at, what is the future of this industry? What's the vision of the restaurant business? And I've been in this business for 20 years.
Yeah,
seen it evolve over the years, but really it's been stagnant. I mean, there hasn't been a disruption, so to speak, in the last, at least as far as I know it, for the last 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
There has been trends up and down, but nothing really disruptive. Until about 4 or 5 years ago, with the introduction of technology and the integration of technology into the business. And what resulted in that is all these aggregators, sitting at home in your app, ordering at your convenience, getting the product in 15, 20 minutes, getting it fresh, getting it hot, getting it, as you like. That has revolutionized the business, and it has revolutionized it in a way where delivery has become more and more important. And we're talking about mostly the casual dining and the fast casual sector, right? So that trend was going on pre-COVID, and exponentially, the delivery aspect or the delivery share of the pie was increasing, as well as the pie itself, because when you are sitting at home conveniently ordering food, you're going to order more more frequently and maybe even more items and so on. So that has, in our opinion, created an opportunity. So earlier in 2020, we thought, I had just sold my business about 2-3 years ago, which was in the traditional brick and mortar opening stores, brands like Cinnabon, Zata Rosé, Best Coffee, Five Guys.
Right, so it was a hospitality company.
It is a hospitality company, and we had when I sold the business, we had 100 restaurants between Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, and Bahrain.
Okay. I think I've been to a few of them, but
yeah, right. And so we sold that business, and the question is, what's next? And we believe that the future is going to go more and more towards this, technology integrated and technology influenced business. However, we also believe that the brick and mortar, your experience of walking into a restaurant will always be there. You're not, the idea of walking into a restaurant is always going to be there. It's not going to be all virtual. So that's why, like you rightly mentioned, I mean, Kitch is designed around the hybrid approach. So we're going to operate in the cloud, like I feel now being in the cloud, but also we're going to operate brick and mortar concepts, actual restaurants.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. So you weren't the first mover in cloud kitchen, but you've looked at you've looked at the industry, you looked at where we are today, and you've taken a different view on what the future holds.
Exactly. So we're definitely not the first mover. This concept has been going on for a while globally, not just in the region. But the way we're looking at things, I think, is quite unique. I mean, and the way we're creating our competitive edge, if you like, it really stems from the fact of how we see this business going forward. And like I said, I mean, we're not pretending that it's going to be virtual, where everything is going to be in the cloud and, people are going to stick to their homes and stuff like that. I know it feels that way today in the pandemic, but really the pandemic is eventually going to, be behind us. And people will go back to their natural habits. It's natural for people to go out and want to see people and want to interact and be outside and change from their home setting.
Especially around foods.
Especially around food, because it's a social thing. So we're gonna, I think that trend is gonna come back. But we also believe that technology is here to stay.
Yeah.
The fact that delivery is going to be a big part of the business is here to stay.
Yeah. And when you spoke at the start, Walid, and you introduced this concept as the F&B sector hadn't been disrupted by digital big shift.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that notion before. So it's actually quite surprising that we talk of disruption in media, in travel, in finance, in different areas. And then to take it a step further, if the part that was disrupted, which is the delivery, which actually isn't in the food, it's interesting that that part now is coming back.
Right.
And that has kind of led the further kind of consideration of, how does the delivery part now meet the new behavior trends, but how does that impact what a kitchen looks like?
Right.
Is that how you see it, or do you think that different parts of F&B are being disrupted by technology in different ways?
So technology has been introduced into the F&B sector, into the restaurant sector in specific, for a very long time. I mean, automation in the back of the house, ability to govern your CRM and manage your customer relations and all this. The technology has always been there. However, to me, when I say disruption, it's more than it's more than just getting a system into the place or having automation. It's really disruptive in the way that it changed consumer behavior.
Yeah.
And I think Steve Jobs once said that don't ask customers what they want. They don't know what they want. We'll tell them what they want. And this technology aspect, and particularly the delivery aggregators, have really sort of imposed, if you like, this disruption and imposed this major change and shift, in the sense that the aggregators came in and said, you want more delivery. You are going to take more delivery and be frequent in the delivery. And as a result, we're offering you this technology. So, and as a result, customers and restaurants and so on will come on board.
Yeah.
And that's what we've seen. So the technology has, I think I agree with your point about maybe the restaurant business and the restaurant industry is probably the last to be disrupted by technology. But I think until that time, technology was playing a role, but we didn't know what, how do we take technology and disrupt the industry until the aggregators came. You have to give them full credit. And I was one of those people, in the traditional business who resisted these aggregators because from a financial perspective, we don't want to share our margins with anyone, I mean, and it's a major share. So for us, that was the tough part as an operator. However, really, and until today, a lot of people look at this as a threat. The aggregators being, taking a big part of the portion of your margins. But really, when you think about it, it's an opportunity because, if I always keep saying that restaurants can actually benefit from this trend by growing faster. Today, you do not. If you cover, let's say, JLT in a restaurant with a restaurant, if you're a restaurant operator and you cover JLT in an area in Dubai, if you want to go somewhere else, traditionally what you have to do is go and build a brick and mortar business, spend a lot of money, and wait a long period of time. Today, you don't have to do that. You go to a cloud kitchen operator. You plug in immediately, and within a week you're up and running. And anyway, most of your business was going to be delivery, so you don't need that storefront. You don't need that customer facing, presence.
Yeah.
And that is an opportunity. I mean,
True.
yes, it is. If you look at the financials and say today I'm paying X% to an aggregator, and that is hurting my bottom line. It's true, but if you look at the big picture, it's an opportunity for growth.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that because you do hear the resistance. You still hear it. I was watching a segment on a famous delicatessen in New York, Katz. The one, yeah. And they talked now after the pandemic, and they said they went delivery, and even still they're resisting.
Yes.
And I thought, I kind of tried to compare it to media, and we see what's happening with media with Facebook and Google in Australia, and the ones that embraced it, like say New York Times, embraced Facebook but
Yes.
did a metered paywall, and they are actually the 10th biggest brand in the world advertiser on Facebook, and they've also by far the most subscribers in the world
Right.
on their paywall because they treat it as utility.
Right.
And I don't understand the F&B industry, but if, like you described it as an opportunity, apples for apples, the margin, it's tough. It
Yes.
must be tough.
Yes.
But do you think the ones that like you have done that do bricks and mortar with this new utility can prosper?
I think exactly right. I think this is the right combination. This is the right mix between the two. And I'd like to tell you a funny story if you allow me. I mean, I worked on the Five Guys franchise from the
Yeah.
United States
Yeah.
for a very long time. And then in 2016, we managed to get the franchise. We opened stores and so
Wow.
on. And I remember after we signed our franchise deal, and Five Guys is one of those very specialized
Yeah.
companies. They only have burgers and fries. That's it. And they everything they do is focused on that.
Yeah. So, I sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
I remember listening to the How I Built This Five
Yes,
Guys.
yes,
You-
I love that series with Jim Morrell,
Jerry
Jerry Morrell.
Yeah,
Yes.
Guy Raz does How I Built This.
Right,
but,
right.
But they, and they actually said that it's interesting you did Five Guys because their first franchise, the second store,
Yes,
only came after 17 years.
yes,
It's
exactly.
fascinating. But
Exactly.
yeah, so
And
you have
it's
hands-on
funny because
experience.
that guy who was on the show,
Oh.
Jerry Morrell, he's the
Oh,
founder
okay.
of the company. He's the father of the Five Guys, his kids.
Yeah.
But when after we signed, I went to him in their office in Virginia, and
Wow.
we're doing a tour and we're talking and stuff. And he said, and he's a very, very interesting character. I learned so much from him. And he asked me a trick question, and at that time I didn't know him well, so I didn't know he tricked me, but he does. And he said, Walid, what do you think of delivery? And we're talking about 2016, 15, 16. I said, listen, I mean, I believe in delivery. I think it's the future. Our communities love it, and I think we should definitely embrace it and so on. And he goes, yeah. And he listened to me for like 2 minutes, and then he said, well, Five Guys doesn't deliver, and we'll never deliver. And I was like, okay. And he said, but let me tell you a story. And I said, okay. He said, when we first opened our first store in Alexandria, Virginia, they opened it right next to the Pentagon. It's close to the Pentagon. It's a small hole in the wall. That was
Amazing.
their first store. Amazing burgers, amazing reviews, line out the door. And then he said, I'm sitting in a store one day and I get a call. And the call's, from someone from the Pentagon. I picked up the phone. I said, good afternoon. This is Five Guys. And the other line went, yes, hi, this is Admiral so-and-so from the Pentagon. I said, yes, sir. He said, I'd like a delivery of, I don't know, 20 burgers and 15 fries or something. And he goes, I'm sorry, sir, but we don't deliver. So the Admiral said, well, I don't know if you understand me correctly, sir, but this is Admiral so-and-so from the Five Guys from the Pentagon, and I'd like a delivery. He said, well, we don't deliver. And he hung up on it.
No.
And then the next day, he put a big sign, and he showed me a picture of it, a big sign that says, we absolutely don't deliver on the store.
No way.
Fast forward 15 years or whatever, 20 years
Yeah.
or whatever. Today, delivery is a big portion of their business. They adapted to it, they accepted to it. But the original notion that was that, the experience is what makes Five Guys different. We want people to come in, even if they take a takeaway, that's fine. But at least I want them to come into the store, stand in line, have the free peanuts,
Yeah.
This thing has changed, and the way that consumer behaved has changed. And if Five Guys were stuck on their old ways, they would definitely be hurt today. So adapting and changing is extremely important.
That's a fascinating story. Well, of course, they also didn't do franchise, and then
Right.
they did that. But
Right.
it's very interesting to hear delivery as something that came up in that funny story. But it's something that came up before the aggregators, as
Yes,
we call them,
yes,
and
yes.
people always had to think about it. So that's amazing. So if you were doing the franchise business now,
Right.
In 2016, how would Kitch support that, or what are the services that Kitch does? If you can explain.
So we're actually doing that. We're actually doing the franchise business, if you like, version 2.0. And the way we're going about it is we're going to hot brands around the world, brands that we think will fit in our region, and going to them and saying, listen, we are in the business of developing this brand, right? And the way we're developing it today is different than when we used to develop it 15 or 18 years ago. And the way we're developing it today is with a major focus on delivery and a major focus on cloud kitchen. So I'd like to take your franchise and place it predominantly in our kitchens. And when necessary and when applicable, we'll open the brick and mortar. But it's not going to be a brick and mortar focused business. In other words, if I take a Five Guys, whatever, 10 years ago when we signed the franchise, it was a 40 store deal in Saudi Arabia, for example, right?
Okay.
Today we're saying, if I do a similar deal, I would say, no, it's a 3-store deal, physical store deal, and maybe 100 cloud kitchen deal.
Wow.
Because the penetration and the speed that I can, penetrate the market through the cloud kitchen is much easier than penetrating and much cheaper than penetrating through actually building stores. And this is really, and at the end, you're going to build a store which is going to have 60% delivery anyway. So why spend all that money and why have that huge OPEX, operational expenses, and so on, while you can quickly penetrate the market in other ways?
And could the store come at the same time in some cases?
Yes, we're doing that actually. As we're speaking, I mean, we're going to announce next week a franchise deal that we signed with a Lebanese brand,
which is
next week.
Okay.
Well, but it's a very famous, very old street food brand, the number one in Lebanon. And what we're doing is we're doing exactly that. We're developing them simultaneously. So we're doing the cloud kitchen development. So we're putting them in our kitchens, but at the same time, we're opening an actual physical store, actually very close to where we are here.
Interesting. So I heard about this in terms of a similar story that you mentioned about the deals per store per country. That big brands, big multinational franchise companies are changing their entry to markets now.
Yes.
Instead of say 500 stores in India, they're doing this sort of analogy. Walid, does that lend itself to different types of brands? Firstly, for you guys, and then secondly, how do you, if you're a legacy business that has projections and you have a business model that the customer value or the metrics that are used, how do you change that narrative? How do you kind of communicate to the market? How do you kind of manage those expectations?
Let me tell you, Richard, I think the shift of a sort of an old kind of business is going to be is very tough, because if you take a business that has, I'm talking about an existing business that has 500 restaurants in any market, and now you're going to have to switch them to to try to be half or even try to accommodate the growth to be mostly in cloud, it's going to be difficult because you already have the assets, you already have the investment. But I think there are many creative ways of doing it. And I'll give you some that we're actually considering in some of the opportunities that we're looking at. So, if you have an existing business, let's call it a version 1.0, and you have a lot of assets and a lot of storefronts and so on, and those storefronts, the economics are not making sense anymore. One of the ways of dealing with this is to really convert them into cloud kitchens.
Yeah.
So you have a physical location, has one brand. Today, let it be customer facing with one brand. But in the back, you can plug in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever, depending on the size of the store, and make it a delivery hub for other brands. I think this is the way to go, and this is the key to move forward. The problem is, the problem I know and the opportunity at the same time, but a lot of the franchise owners, if you're talking about the franchise business now globally, know and realize this new trend and understand this is the way to go forward. And from me even talking to a lot of companies that I talked to maybe 2 years ago about the potential and the possibility of getting into the Middle East, for example, their view has changed. They've become more realistic. Initially they would say, no, we want X number of stores. Today they're realizing the trend and understanding the opportunity, because really you can penetrate the market much faster, get the exact volumes that you used to get, less investment, more profit, and better penetration speed.
Interesting. So we're talking about franchise, but does every business have these decisions to make? And would Kitch also do consultancy in terms of, there's so many different approaches now. Like some might, some brands who've got big space could operate as a cloud kitchen. They can launch their own sub brands. Yeah. It's like when the aggregators were coming, some built up their own apps as well, and did delivery, and did one or the other, and now they can do both. Like, do you think that would you have exclusivity with these brands, or how can you help?
So the way the way that Kitch is designed to operate, because the cloud kitchen model has a variety of ways of executing it. It goes from being a real estate play where you have the kitchens and you're just renting them out to third party and getting rents. That's one aspect of it, or one part of the spectrum. And the other part is no, you operate your own brands. We believe in Kitch, we believe that the consistency and the viability and the sustainability of the business relies on the brands. I'm not interested in a real estate business. I'm interested in building brands, associating myself with brands. And when I say that, it means a lot of things. It means we can create our own brands, both virtual brands or virtual/physical brands. It means also franchise deals, looking at ability to franchise. And when we talk about franchise, it's definitely exclusive. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about international brands who want to come in.
Yeah.
I think the idea of taking a market like Saudi Arabia or the UAE in the Gulf, you really need to have this exclusivity to be able to, put all the scale behind it and investment behind it to be able to grow it. So yes, exclusivity. I'm personally, and us as Kitch are huge believers in the power of brands. And we don't care if it makes money day one or day two or day 100. At the end of the day, we execute to the best of our abilities. And eventually, the money thing will come in as a byproduct.
Yeah, interesting. I wanted to ask about the franchise and your experience. I know we've talked about it a lot, but just technically, Walid, for people who know of cloud-based brands that don't have bricks and mortar, that appear in their aggregator app, and they might be designed just for that search term like burger or chicken. People might understand what type of kitchen that comes from, but for people traditionally, I'm imagining my mum who is a chef and had a few businesses in that space. What would her kitchen look like? She still needs to be the main person in that kitchen.
Right.
So how can that? So how many for a kitchen? How many chefs can you have? How many kind of concepts can you have, and how big is the cloud kitchen?
So again, the model has to be decentralized. So every kitchen has to have, I don't know about chefs, or the way we're set up is we're not going to create chefs and them sitting there and creating brands, although that's one viable way to look. However, the way we look at it is that we want associations and we want partnerships with people who can create brands. Whether it's franchise or people, there are so much talent in this region. We talked earlier before the show about the talents in Saudi.
Yeah.
If you go to Saudi today, the amount of restaurants, homegrown restaurants, not franchise, forget franchise. Just homegrown brands is phenomenal. And it's all impressive in branding, in food quality, in creativeness. I'm really it's mesmerizing.
It's incredible. Yeah.
It's incredible. So you take this talent, you bring it into your cloud, and you partner with them where it's a win-win. They develop their brand. We offer the ability for them to grow and scale because they don't have that anyway. This is the new age. This is the way that to develop brands going forward.
Yeah.
So your mom has to adapt her kitchen and her chef and her everything. So.
Well, I think in that scenario, I totally understand how you explained it, and that would have helped her reach a different part of the country. And I totally get it from that. I think I was thinking more from say McDonald's or say Al Bake. They have a process, and even if they don't have a main chef, I actually did an internship stint, not an internship, it was a full-time job in McDonald's in Germany, in Regensburg outside Munich. And the owner, he was an American guy, and he had 7 McDonald's, and mainly for drive-through near the BMW garages and stuff like that. But it was a fascinating experience, and I saw behind it was like a game to kind of, 3 Big Macs, 3 Fish Macs and stuff like that. And you had to look at the different numbers and the silver arrows, so they would be thrown out after 15 minutes. It was so processed. Is that how your kitchen will work? Or do you create your own process that helps all the brands? Or do you adapt what's been working for them?
So it's a mixture of both. You see the kitchens themselves physically, it's a huge kitchen with sub kitchens inside it. So the brands would occupy some of those kitchens, right? And then the overall kitchen, the infrastructure has a lot of shared services. So we would have warehousing. We'd be able to do all the processing of the actual physical order. Once it's created, taken out from that particular brand, put in the dispatch area, waiting for the delivery person to come and pick it up and take it forward. So it's a mixture of both. But I strongly believe, because this, I've also we have a business in Saudi Arabia that deals with McDonald's on the distribution side,
Yeah.
and I've done a lot of training in McDonald's. They're an absolute school. You learn so much from them.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of value in systemizing and making structures in place, and we have to have that. And this is again where technology comes in.
Okay.
How does it help you? How does it take a process and makes it in a way where it's replicable? Because the name of the game here is scale, right? You're not here just to build one kitchen and sit on it. The idea is to build 100 kitchens. And how can you have concept X being kitchen number 1 and kitchen number 100 in the same quality and the same structure? It's all about systems and data. And this is, again, where technology can be helped.
Interesting. So that's part of your roadmap for how you're building out the kitchens.
Yes, absolutely. And the other aspects that we need to talk about as well, and it has to be mentioned in this context, is data. We talk about technology in a big way. To me, 90% of technology, in my mind, is all about data. It's all about information. And I keep saying this, every single delivery by an aggregator, if you're sitting at home ordering a pizza, that delivery, that order has close to 3,000 data points.
Oh, wow.
So imagine, what time you ordered, how long it took, what did you actually view before you ordered the pizza? How much did you spend this time compared to last time? All this information is a wealth, is a treasure of information that if processed right, with the right technology, with the right AI, with the right eyes of actual humans to look into this, a lot of decisions can be made out of it. What products to place where, what price point, how fast people want, all this information is important. And this is where technology comes into play.
True. Interesting. That actually leads nicely into what I was going to ask in terms of how do you spot trends? And I tried Veganuary, and I was surprised at how many plant-based options were on the aggregators that are very interesting. But I was wondering, are they seeing mentions on social media? Are they seeing, Dubai now has demand for this? Or are they actually looking at data, like you mentioned? And, you've had a good eye for creating brands and bringing brands in. How much of it is having a creative sort of, having a gut feeling, no pun intended, but like having a taste feeling, or kind of looking at those trends, the market is ready for this type of...
So I think you raise a very, very important point. And I think, I personally, and this could be right, could be wrong, but it worked for me. I strongly believe in gut feel. As an entrepreneur, as someone who knows this industry, and this gut feel is not something that you develop overnight. It comes with experience, right? So I get exposed to a lot of concepts, a lot of ideas from all over the world when you travel, when you see different things. And when you see something, your gut will tell you from experience, this will work in our region or not.
Yeah.
But we have to like it. I have to like it as a consumer first and foremost. So that's definitely a very important aspect of choosing brands. The other thing is, we talked again about data. I mean, what is the data telling you? We are going to drive everything that we do with data. But again, consumers don't always tell you what they want, let alone they don't even know what they want.
Yeah.
So this is where creativity and also risk taking. You have to be bold. You have to, sort of go against the crowd sometimes. And if the trend tells you X, sometimes you do Y because you believe in it. And you've been in this industry and understand the industry so much that you know that there's market for that. And the aggregators are the best examples, because when they came up, everybody said they're going to fail because, who are they to come and charge me 15, 20%, 30% or whatever it is? I'm never going to deal with them.
Yeah.
And, they came at a time, and, specifically in our experience, we had Za'atar Uzaid. And Za'atar Uzaid delivery back in between 2006 all the way to 2010 was the leading delivery platform in Dubai, for example.
And you did really well on adapting Facebook and all these things. And
yes, so we incorporate, but even from a physical presence, I mean, we had the biggest fleet, we had an amazing call center, we had a great system, but we were doing it exclusively for Za'atar Uzaid, and we were the leader, delivery aggregator, delivery platform. but of course, it wasn't our intention. I mean, it was a support service.
Yeah.
So at
A
that
cost
time,
center. Yeah.
yeah, it's a center. So at the end of the day, you know, the aggregators came in and said, we're going to do this service for you, but we're going to charge you 25%. And we say, no, you're not. We're not going to work with you. So, you know, this resistance,
Mm.
but you know, from the perspective of the aggregators and their founders and the people behind it, is a perfect example of how, you know, you believe in something, you see it, you go after it, and you get it through because they've proven themselves and they've taken over the world, really.
Yeah, and a lot of them executed well.
Yes.
Like that's really important when you're either growing one concept or a franchise. You know, is the execution, how important is it? Do you have any principles that you follow, or how do you
So
scale?
it's funny you say that because we just finalized our guiding principles
Okay.
with Kitch yesterday, and execution and we call it excellence in execution is at the core of that.
Mm.
We believe in execution as the success factor first and foremost, first and last.
Mm.
You have to execute to the best of your abilities, and this is, you know, again going back to talking about the kitchen, the cloud kitchen industry, and the fact that yes, we're not the only players, but there are so many.
Mm.
You know, a lot of people have looked at this as a technology business. And I believe it is, right? I mean, the cloud kitchen is sort of in a technology business, you know, data, automation, and so on. But people sometimes lose track of the core competence in this, which is we are in the food business.
Sure.
You're delivering food. You know, you're
Mm.
sitting at home getting your order. You don't care what technology went behind it. You want your food,
Yeah.
you know, tasty, yummy, hot, whatever. If you don't get that, you're never going to order again. You, no matter what technology is behind it. So, and this is what differentiates us. You know, I have been in this business for 25 years. You know, I've developed brands, I've developed restaurants, and the team around me is all about food.
Mm.
Yes, technology is at the core of it. And yes, technology, if you say you're in the technology business, you immediately imply higher valuations and
Yeah.
better metrics valuations.
Yeah.
But we really, this is not our focus. And that's why we remained private in our fundraising.
Mm.
We didn't go out to the market and raise funds. We had just myself and my partner raising money between the two of us because we don't want any pressures on valuations. We believe valuation is going to come, but it's not now. We want to execute first, you know, approve business, and then have the right foundation to grow.
Yeah, interesting. So yeah, you might be a horizontal, and then with this way, with food and technology, you can create your own narrative around the valuation,
Right.
and you can do it in that way. Have you disclosed the investment that's going
Yes.
into this?
Yes, sure. So we've raised $15 million currently, you know, under our disposal, and that will take us through probably the end of the year. And then even second phase of funding is going to continue to be private.
Okay, and will it be a seed or a Series A then?
Yeah, it'll be a seed.
Yeah.
And that will take us again probably for another 6 to 12 months. At one point, we have to go to market. We have to raise funds from the market. But really, what we're trying to do is making sure that we have a solid proof of concept, that we're not selling, you know, just an idea. We're not selling fish and sea. You know, we're selling an actual concept that proves itself or has proven at least partially the viability of the economic model. At that time, I think we everybody will be better off. The investors will be more comfortable. We will be more comfortable, and we will have already established the foundation for the right business. And again, it really what you mentioned is at the core of Kitch's core competences, which is excellence in execution.
Execution. Interesting. Just to understand your business more, and maybe I'll frame it in terms of how the funds are allocated.
Yeah.
How much of this is, how do aggregators work with the cloud kitchen? Do you have your own proprietary tech? And then how much of it are you building physical cloud kitchens?
So most of the funds being raised is going to go towards capital expenditure and building these kitchens, the actual physical building of those kitchens. We also, like we said, you know, we believe in the technology aspect of this. So we are investing hugely in the technology, you know, with partnerships, investing in partners that have already something that we can work with, aligning ourselves with them and building the technology. The idea of you know, getting partnerships again is at the core of our competences and the ability to get them both from a aggregator perspective or from a technology perspective running the back of our house is also important. the aggregators, the way we deal with this is that, again, we really like to forge relationships. I don't mind dealing with aggregators that add value, that, show us that we can work together and work exclusively with them,
Mm.
either temporarily or on a long-term basis, as long as it's a win-win. And I think, given the sort of the environment that we're living in today in terms of the aggregators, competition and stuff like that, and also the expansion. I mean, just drive today on any road in Dubai, and you can see all these aggregator delivery guys going
Yeah,
all over. I mean, it's massive, right?
true.
So we want, aligning yourself and making partnerships, I think, is also very important.
Interesting. And in terms of scale and speed of that allocation with you mentioned it earlier that it's not a real estate, it's a play, it's a brand play. Are there quick wins in terms of partnerships, or do you have to construct from scratch, especially with in the COVID era that we're in terms of commercial real estate space, that
Yeah.
is there something smart you can do with a partnership that can allow you to be in places faster?
Yeah, and this is exactly actually what I did, because I've partnered in Saudi Arabia with a major real estate player. So my partner Fahad Al Hakir,
Okay.
who's a great friend as well, but they are a major player in the real estate. Uh, they're not just adding, added value in terms of funding, but they're also adding a lot of value to our business
Yeah.
by opening real estate doors for us and having the ability to give us access to wherever we want to go. So these kind of partnerships is what I'm talking about.
And are they investors, their strategic partnership that
Yes.
allow you to scale fast
Yeah,
as well?
so they're a major
Amazing.
shareholder in
Yeah.
this business. They're a majority
Smart.
shareholder, and
Yeah.
it's a win-win for us. They believe in this model. They believe in Kitch, and this is their number one priority company right now.
Brilliant. Kind of trying to understand it all, but making
Yeah.
sense now. And before we talk about the future, I just want to go back to the sort of gut feeling and picking brands,
Yeah.
because I think consumers will be quite excited about that. A lot of people, make comments of the trend is going to reach here at a certain phase. It starts here, say in the US. And what's your view on that? I've just given an example. I remember barbecue, like chicken wings and barbecue places in London. And when I was in Dublin, we didn't have. I was 25, Ali, and I'd never had I'm talking to a producer. I never had a burrito, right? And I'll tell you a funny story, Walid. I moved to London. I think it was 2010. So I was 27. Moved to London, and I'd never had a burrito. And I was working in a social media agency. And we went to a festival, a Twitter festival, and I won a year's supply of Chilango's burritos.
Okay.
I never had a burrito. And I met Eric Partaker, kind of a charismatic American Norwegian guy, and met him in a bar with his kid and his marketing lady. And they gave me a bag full of 365 vouchers for
the whole year.
For the whole year.
Uh-huh.
And these were, I think they were £8 sterling, £8 or £9 sterling, so $10 or $12, probably in weight as well. And I went, and he wrote out a recipe, and I went up and I ordered a burrito, and I was in a social media agency, and I tweeted out, people were saying, "Who can I be your best friend, burrito boy?" And then I was DMing.
It became popular all of a sudden.
And I was DMing some girls say, "Well, if you want some vouchers, let's go for a date." And I walked down Shoreditch Brick Lane, and they were selling these Mexican masks. And I bought one of them, Nacho Libre, and I put up a website, 52burritodates.com. And every day, every week on Wednesday for 52 weeks, I dated a different burrito babe. And he supported it, and he gave, we had a burrito babe party, they made t-shirts.
Oh, that's
It was
fantastic.
Chilango, so it was amazing. But and they pushed it out, and it was a burrito story, right? But I never had burritos, and it just reminded me of, like, that was a trend, right? That was a thing. And I was wondering, why don't they open here? Why don't they open Chilango here?
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the podcast. But that was my exposure to kind of trends that are big in one market, not in another. And why do you think that happens? Why do you think that might be big in London and not here, for example?
So, in the past, there are different tastes, different consumer behavior and habits, and they differ from country to country. And even within a country, I mean, if you go in different parts of Saudi Arabia, some of the habits in the east are different than the west and the central region. But more and more, from my experience, more and more, you're seeing this convergence of habits and ways of consuming, in our industry, consuming food and taste of food from all over the world. What works, I mean, again, I'll give you an example on Five Guys because my experience with that brand has been phenomenal. When we opened Five Guys in Riyadh, 5, 6 years ago, it was, first of all, it was the biggest Five Guys in the world,
Really?
out of 1,500 stores. It continued to be the biggest grossing as well in terms of sale.
Really?
Number one in the world for a very long time until I think Paris Champs-Élysées store came on. But the thing is, we opened at 10 o'clock in the morning. I remember being there with my wife. It was a weekday, 10 o'clock in the morning.
And not many things would open at that time.
Not many things were open at that time, and we don't serve breakfast, mind you.
Okay.
It's just burgers, right?
Cool.
And the line was out the door, and we did zero advertising. So you talk about the power of brand and the power of globalization, because how would your typical Saudi line up in front of a Five Guys to eat a burger, which is not a Saudi product, right? It's an American, all American product. It's the power of the brand. People have seen it in the UK, have seen it more importantly, on social media.
Yeah.
And we did zero advertising. And people were lining up literally for 2, 3 hours for a good 2, 3 weeks. That was the trend, just to get a burger. Meanwhile, while they're waiting, you know what they're doing? They're posting pictures on their Instagram and doing our advertising for us.
Yeah.
So, the power of brand, the power of globalization, and the ability to have, yes, there are trends, I agree, in different parts of the world. And, sometimes it fits in certain markets, sometimes it didn't. But if you step back and look at the big picture, the world is really becoming one. And the power of social media, despite all the negative things that can come out of it, it really has united the world and has created. You're sitting here looking at the opening of whatever Five Guys in Mexico, right? You're sitting in Saudi before Five Guys came on, and you say, "Wow, I can't wait for Five Guys to open in Riyadh." And when it opens, you line up.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal power.
And then when they open the next one, you go there as well.
Yes, exactly. Well, they'll go there if your product is good.
Yeah.
This, I mean, you have the brand that will give you the immediate push. But if your product, and again, your execution and your excellence in execution is not there, at one point, this is not sustainable.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, again, in the food business, you have to execute well.
Interesting. On that point about execution, because we're in a digital world and with data, and it's a lot about iterating and making decisions based on feedback and things like that. How perfect does your product have to be? Can you make mistakes in a cloud world now?
You can. I mean, mistakes will happen, and what we tell our people is, don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to take risks, because that's where you sort of have a breakthrough idea. But I think the more training that you have, the more structure that you have, the ability to sort of systemize everything and within an organization, and this applies to food or non-food, any business in the world, the less the mistakes happen. But I'd like to differentiate between mistakes in making a burger and putting, in Five Guys training, they tell you where to put the mustard and where to put the ketchup. Is it at the bottom bun or the top bun?
Okay.
So these things you can train, but also I want to differentiate between making a mistake and ability to think out of the box. Everyone that we hire in the organization, and when I meet them, I really look for creativity and ability to think out of the box. This is how you can create value. We're not robots. At the end of the day, we want people to think, what is the next big thing? Even if you're a line operator in a restaurant, you don't have to be the CEO of a company. Even if you're a line operator, in fact, I would argue the line operator has better access to ideas than the CEO, because they're in touch with the product and in touch with the people. Yeah. We want to empower these people to make sure that they understand what they're doing and how we can what's the next big thing.
Interesting. When a lot of the time we were talking about picking brands, I guess maybe it's my fault, but I just assumed it was an existing brand or a new concept that will be bricks and mortar that you scale. There are chicken brands and burger brands that are only cloud.
Yes.
Do you do the opposite with them? Do you spot that and say, okay, well, you need more? You have your own cloud kitchen, you need many cloud kitchens, and you could potentially have a physical space. Is that what Kitch does as well?
Absolutely. So this is exactly what we do. And it also depends on the concept and depends on the category, because some categories would not require a physical store. Some categories would. You take pizza, for example. Pizza is, 70-80% is delivery. You don't have people, not anymore. They used to maybe go out and have a pizza, but today pizza is a highly deliverable product. Some others like casual dining, American diners, whatever, other concepts that you can think about, they would require you to go and have the experience. So with those kind of concepts, you really need the physical store and the physical experience, and sometimes the flagship, because yes, we're in a digital media age, and yes, you can be influenced by an ad you see on Instagram, and you can order from that restaurant just because of that ad. You like the product, and you become a consumer for life without actually a physical store. But also sometimes you need the flagship. Sometimes you need to see the brand. You need to physically understand the experience before you order. So it's a balance that you have to run going forward.
Interesting. So a couple of questions around the future. One is the high-end luxury restaurants, the fine dining. What do you think will lead in terms of how are they being disrupted? Of course, there's the pandemic and it's difficult times for them, but do you think that they're part of this cloud kitchen, or is it possible to do delivery for them?
It's a very, very smart question, and I can tell you that until now, the sort of logical answer to that is no. I mean, fine dining is fine dining. You need to go and have the experience, have the interaction, be there. It's an experience. I would argue though that COVID has changed that. The Zumas of the world, the LPMs of the world have started delivery during COVID, and they've done phenomenally well. They
Okay.
understood now that their product is deliverable. They understood also that people not just go there for the experience, but for also the quality of food. The question is going to become, are you able to replicate the same quality out of a cloud kitchen as you do in your main restaurant? If the answer is yes, and I would argue it is yes, then I think that's the next threat.
And how would you do that? Is it more than the dish, and is it more than the packaging?
Well, I mean, in a delivery product, you're really going for the food, right? So if you get the food right, everything else can be designed around it. But I think first and foremost, the food has to be consistent, because the brand is a double-edged sword, right? When you open a Five Guys, people come in, and it attracts people, so that's the upside. But the downside or the risk is that they know exactly what they're expecting, and if they don't get it, they won't come back again. So you have to perfect it, and not only perfect it in terms of quality, but perfect it in terms of consistency. Our Five Guys in Riyadh was the same Five Guys product that you had in Virginia or in London or in Singapore now. So that consistency is very important also for the fine dining. If you offer something and people are ordering from a Zuma delivery, they have to have the same product.
Okay. Do you draw a line then on what you would do that it's ready to eat? Some of the fine dining, they give you ideas of how to finish it off at home with your own kitchen utensils.
Yes.
Is that something that you think you would offer?
We haven't looked at that, to be honest.
Okay.
I mean, that's something that we look at an end product,
fair.
at a finished product delivered. And I mean, I know a lot of services that will get you to have the ingredients and the recipe to make it at home, but our kitchen will do that for you.
Yeah, you do it. You do what you do well.
Yeah.
And then the other side of this, so the hospitality companies, how do you think how have you seen that they're transitioning to this, and how are you working with them? So there's the aggregators that you work with, but there's all the groups that have these well-established brands
Yes.
that don't have cloud kitchen.
Right.
How do you see that they've coped with this transformation?
So the saying, if you don't change, you get changed. And people who are not on their toes in this industry and any other industry, not able to see the future, not able to adapt to the future, become my biggest example. I keep saying Nokia. Nokia was the leader in mobile phones until smartphones came in and said, no, we're Nokia, and where are they today? You don't even see that brand anymore.
Sure.
Right? So the ability to change in this industry is extremely important. Existing businesses, existing brands, hospitality companies that have the ability to change, that are on their toes, ready to make changes, and ready to make sometimes even painful changes. Closing stores and going into a kitchen is not an easy thing to do for a brick and mortar operator. But people who are able to do that are able to capture that trend.
How disruptive, irrespective of digital, has COVID-19 been to the hospitality and F&B
Oh,
sector?
it's been devastating. It's been devastating. I mean, you know, you look at restaurants that have closed down, concepts, not just in this region. I mean, actually more in the US. I think Open Table has issued a statistics that said or expected 4 out of 10 restaurants in the US are going to close down.
Mm.
It's been devastating. But again, a lot of people, there are so many success stories on how people adapted to this way, switching to kitchen, building the delivery aspect and just staying afloat until this thing is over, and then we can see what we can do.
Yeah, I heard something in the US that one person had a kind of a bullish view of when the vaccines roll out that the hospitality sector jobs can return,
Right.
and the counter argument was if the restaurants are there, because they're closing down.
Yes.
Do you think that the jobs will return and that there will be kind of a return to a healthy industry for F&B?
I think it will rebound. I think the hospitality and travel sectors have been hit the most in COVID globally. I think also that they will be the first to rebound because people are sick and tired of sitting at home. They want to travel and they want to go out and eat
Sure.
out. So I think they'll recover fast. However, the impact has been, until today has been very, very devastating. We talked earlier about, COVID being very harsh on livelihoods
Mm.
as much as lives. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people lost their lives, but a lot of people also lost their livelihoods which is devastating also, and hopefully things will bounce back quickly.
True. Yeah, exactly. Hopefully. Final question around this region and as emerging market.
Yeah.
Walid, you've been a successful entrepreneur in this region. You know it very well. And you've put your capital and your energy back into the region.
Yeah.
What's the bullish case outside of your industry for the region as an emerging market?
Well, listen, I'll just tell you one statistic, which is this is a very young and vibrant region. In Saudi Arabia, I think 60% of the population is under the age of 30. So, and that explains all this creativity that we talked about earlier. So I'm betting on that. I'm betting on, I'm betting also on Saudi 2.0. Again, I'm attached to Saudi Arabia. I lived there all my life. And I can tell you the changes I've seen there are just very, very exciting. There's a major transformation that's happening, and consumers are hungry, so to speak. No pun intended, but hungry for new ideas
True.
and hungry to catch up with the world.
Yeah. Brilliant note to finish on. Thanks so much for your time today.
Pleasure. Thank you,
And
Richard.
we look forward to following the Kitch journey.
Thank you.
That's it for another episode of Dubai Works. Thank you so much for listening, and please leave a review on the podcast platform that you're listening to. It really helps with organic searches. Also, if you'd like to appear on Dubai Works or know someone who has an inspiring business story in Dubai, please do get in touch on any of the smashy social platforms with organic searches. Also, if you'd like to appear on Dubai Works or know someone who has an inspiring business story in Dubai, please do get in touch on any of the smashy social platforms